There's a philosophical basis when you do this work that you really need to know and understand if you're really going to be honest and have a meaningful discussion with the community. That philosophical basis is believing that the public's voice has value, that there's wisdom greater than your own, that you don't have all of the answers. There's a humbleness to this, believing that there's good ideas out in the community. So you have to respect that and honor that and take that forward in everything you do. You have to know that if you do that right, that many hands make light work and that you can achieve phenomenal things within a short period of time, and your work is actually easier. Even all those questions about how much time and effort do I put in at the beginning of this, and this is a lot of work and a lot of energy. If you don't do it, the rework you have to do, the torture you go through in controversial public meetings, the second guessing of yourself, the lack of confidence that the public has in your work will be your payoff. So how do you engage the community and do that hard work up front to make everything else go easier? And know that if you do it right, the community has a memory, and that work is sticky. So if you leave office, the next person that comes in, the work that you've done will be lasting, and the community will remind the next mayor or whoever it is of this work and the commitment that the city or your town made to its citizens. So how do you do this work? There was a little bit of a reference earlier. This is learning focused. You want to have the community understand, just like the budget presentation, what it is that you're trying to achieve, what information do they need from you to be able to have a productive discussion. And in turn, what are the questions that you're asking them that gives you information to do your work better? So what are these things that we need to learn together in our process so that we can really have an effective, fruitful discussion and know that when we get from point A to point Z, we've done it together and we can see our work. When we did our master plan for Grand Rapids, we had a citizen, and I don't know who this woman was, she just came to a lot of the meetings, and at the end of the process she said, I can see how the questions that you asked, I can see where my thoughts are, but I never would have imagined this final product being what it is. And she was so proud of what it was. And to date, our 2002 master plan, we still have citizens who show up at our public hearings with their master plan in hand, talking about what the master plan goals are. So how do you make it sticky? How do you make it so it's memorable? And so we've been doing this process now for about 15 years, and the master plan was really the culmination of that. The master plan started out as a funnel with tons of engagement. We had 250 community meetings. The public didn't trust us. The last time we had done a master plan was 1963. And before that, 1923. So every 40 years, we're like, yeah, I guess it's time to update that land use plan. So we asked people, and what we did is we used our CDBG dollars to actually pay neighborhood associations with mini grants, $5,000 to $6,000, doesn't take a lot. Disability Advocates of Kent County, other key special interests that we wanted to have involved, we gave them these mini grants and said, tell us when you want us to show up at your meetings. We want to come to your constituents. So it was a capacity building exercise because they had to develop their own agendas. They were the ones who organized their people, did their newsletters, did their postcards. It saved on staff time. $6,000 for an organization to do all that work, and they're buying into your process in essence because they're being partly accountable for who turns up. It's so simple. So we did that process. That has led to us doing our own neighborhood planning efforts, where neighborhoods now are getting grants from neighborhood or community foundations and actually doing their own planning efforts. They're hiring their own consultants to do their own neighborhood plans that they bring to the city to adapt. Again, no staff resources other than consultation. So how do you do this? And part of my learning when we did the master plan was there's different kinds of learners. It's people who not just looking at the words on the page, but they need to draw, they need to be interactive. You need a whole different set of tools than one thing to get people engaged. And you also have to be consistent. Our master plan themes, we have carried through great neighborhoods, vital business districts, a strong economy, a city in balance with nature, partnerships, a city that enriches our lives, balanced transportation, if I missed that one. These themes have been carried through our planning documents, our city budget. All of our work, we use those same terms over and over again, so the community knows that their voice was heard. We had a brief discussion yesterday about form-based codes. One of the key themes that came out of their master plan was that people said they liked the character of their neighborhood. We looked at year of construction and translated that into a neighborhood pattern workbook. The neighborhood pattern workbook, I brought a copy if anybody wants to see it, provided that learning to the community. What is it that we need you to know about your neighborhood from an urban design perspective? How do we have that language? How do you give them that vocabulary? And then we asked them questions. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Cosmo quizzes in Cosmopolitan magazine. This is my inspiration. So you can answer the little questions and you add up all the points, and at the bottom it tells you what kind of neighborhood you have. We wanted to test the idea to see if people could kind of, in an easy way, understand what this meant. And it worked. And then we gave them a bigger vocabulary and also asked them kind of check these boxes. And we gave them visual preference surveys as well. When we did Green Grand Rapids, we created a game, and I brought the game if you want to look at it. Off of Green Pursuits. So what are these things that are familiar to people that they know? You know, Trivial Pursuits, the Cosmo quiz. What are these things that are somewhat familiar? There's a memory to them, but they're really interactive. So we created a game, and during the game we had a mapping process. And in the map we said, show us those streets that you think need more trees. So the map on the left, we're going to have Vanna White help me out. Thank you, Mayor. The map on the left are those streets that that the community said we want to green. The map on the right, it was actually an analysis by Grand Valley State University that showed our tree canopy, and they pulled out rights of way. The citizens intuitively know their community. How do you ask those right questions to get that knowledge out, to really show you know what you're talking about? This is absolutely right. They know. It's just you have to phrase it in the right way. I'm going to skip this one because I have time. For Michigan Street Corridor Plan, we created another game, Quality of Life. And we had people who, basically it's a meeting in a box. These games have been awesome because I don't have to show up for a meeting. They're fun, they're interactive. We had people playing at Founders Brewing Company, board meeting executives, people doing dinner parties with these things. Very, very fun, and a really great way to collect data. So we've used these at the beginning of the process to help inform our work. One of the key things with Michigan Street that I absolutely loved is that we took a developer, used the typical design charrette process, and I felt like there's so many things changing along this corridor so quickly that we really want to go through and really talk about what the key concepts are and what are these hands-on things that people need to know. We'd already gone through and identified the vision for the corridor, identified what the neighborhood wanted, but we wanted to show what that meant on the ground. So we partnered with a developer who had his pro forma and said, I need so many units of housing, so much parking, so much retail, and here's the site. So we worked with his architect and took aerials to scale. The blocks are to scale by the uses that he wants. Each color is a different use. And we had the community lay it out on what the site might look like. And based off that, their architects put that into the computer program so that they could do it in 3D, and then people presented the information on what their idea was for the site, and the members in the meeting scored it based off of whether or not it met the vision of the plan. And that's the project. So he's trying to get financing right now. We also had an issue with, we want bike lanes along the corridor. There's not enough room. And so we took scaled paper strips and aligned that along the corridor so people could see there's physically not enough space to fit everything. No matter how much they wanted to talk about it, they couldn't have it. So we wanted to provide that. Budget was already talked about really briefly, but one of the things that we did when we convened our Sustainable Streets Task Force was to talk about what streets people liked best and least, and we had been designing based off our master plan in Green Grand Rapids Complete Streets. And of course, the streets on the left were the ones that everybody liked the best. Those are the complete streets, and the ones the least, the ones that we hadn't touched in a long time. We had a 2-year steering committee, and we really focused on educating them, working with staff, setting the goals for priority budgeting, what our percent condition should be, and then we went out into the community and said, this is the state of the city, these are the state of our streets, and we have a graphic illustrator on staff. So we tried to create a narrative for the community with the task force that would resonate so that people would understand the situation that we were in and how we got there. So we said, this is what the city has already done, this is what our goal, the longer we wait, the more costly it gets. My favorite is major reconstruction. Get it? Love it. And these are our goals. We wanted 70% good and fair condition for our streets. We needed $9 million in local investment. Because we had the steering committee that could go to the city commission and go to the public, they held the public meetings, they could speak just as knowledgeably about public infrastructure as I could. They were the ones out there talking to the community, and so they ended up becoming the people who ran the campaign to support our streets. We even had a local brewery saying, pothole stout. They had the beer opening on the street. It was great. We're Beer City, USA. And of course we won by a 2-to-1 margin with 64 out of 66 precincts supporting. Really quick lessons learned, because I know I'm out of time. Tom's going to shoot me. Lessons learned: credibility and visibility for community values and vision. In the robust planning process that we had, we built constituents. And policymakers didn't have to be mind readers. They were hearing from the community, so they knew where the community was at. And that impacted our decision making. It allows staff to do safe risk taking. Well, if the community wants us to do this road diet, it's just paint, let's just try it, right? So how do we continually evolve and change, and we're listening to the community, and the community feels like we're doing this and we can take those risks in a different way. When you do this kind of work, 50% of the work is the process. You have to focus on those agendas. What are you trying to get to learn? What do you want the community to know? And as you talk to them, you get these themes, and these themes can become ways of organizing. If you're constantly getting phone calls from your 311 system about bike lanes and why aren't there bike lanes, you're constantly getting emails, that's an opportunity to organize your community into a discussion. We also were able to create champions through the process and create owners. And during the city's tight budget times, we had a $28 million deficit out of a $120 million general operating fund. For a $500,000 planning process, we've had over $10 million of investment in bike lanes, trees, parks, quality of life improvements that we never would have gotten if we didn't have partners at the table who were engaged in a process that created their vision, they owned it, and they're building it. You also have to look at that internal and external support. I talked a little bit about that, and that's it. Thank you.